Holbrook New Media.
This is Jeffrey K. Holbrook. Welcome to the audio feed from holbrooknewmedia.com. Today, Jeff and Jeffrey, the weekly catch-up. We hope you enjoy the audio version. If you want to see what we look like, I will embed the video for this episode at holbrooknewmedia.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Blanchard.
And I'm Jeffrey K. Holbrook, and this is the weekly catch-up.
And we're back for another week of conversation.
Oh, definitely so. It was something that we were talking about last week. I kind of had an additional thought this week and thought that I would maybe bring that up.
Oh, yes. What was that?
Well, we were talking about modern computing and how, a lot of it's being done from phones and, stuff like that. I think where computing is actually going, maybe the future of computing, we were talking about how great it is to have, creatives, people who are making things, want to have a desktop unit and a big command center. I've got 2 monitors and, all this stuff going on. But I think where this is going, you remember back in the 70s when they had mainframes and then dumb terminals?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, they had one big central computer, and then they just had these terminals that you could use commands to access that main computer. Although the terminals won't be as dumb, I believe we're going right back to that, because instead of doing editing and all of that heavy, CPU intensive work at home, I think it's all eventually going to be on large computers online. You have your file, your video file, or your audio file, you upload it and just give commands from your phone or from your tablet, and then all the hard computing work is going to be done on some big mainframe somewhere.
Well, that's not so silly, because with what Rick and I do in the e-learning, one of the packages is my color seems to have gone a bit better now. I'm not so pink. But what we do is the e-learning modules, and Lectora is one of the leading packages on there, and one of their offerings is Lectora Online, and that's exactly what it is. And what's great about that is, so you log on, it's like a cloud service. But if you're working on just say we're doing an e-learning package on how to set up a home computer, and there's 5 chapters, and there's one chapter on how to configure the hard drive, and you're the expert in that, to how to do that, and I'm the expert on the screen, and I want to do that. But in most cases, when you're collaborating on a project, they've got a copy of the program, you've got a copy of it, and then you say, well, who's got the latest version? I've got your changes in that. Whereas with it being on the cloud, I can be working on a chapter, you can be working on the chapter on the same program, on the same thing. So you say, I'll try and alter some. It says, no, Jeffrey K. Holbrook's working on that. And then when you sign it back into there, but it makes a great deal, because the thing is I struggle with a lot of the time is when you do things with other people, who's got the latest version? And it's invariably somewhere along the line you end up deleting the most current one instead of the most current one instead of the earlier one. So, but that's the sort of thing, like you said, it's not so silly as it sounds, because with the cloud and that, as you said, there's the Chromebooks. They're sort of doing that because they've got all the things of a computer, but nothing much in them.
Yeah, like you say, our generation, you and I, we are used to having the power in our hands, but my daughter's generation is used to all of their stuff being online and available, and people know where they're at because of the GPS set up on their phone, and all that. And so the concept of taking your personal files, uploading them to some server, and then what you're talking about takes it a step further. You've got multiple people in different parts of the world working on a single project that keeps it all current and together, and so that way all of you have the most current changes and the most current everything. So really in a group environment like that was a group. And again, I could be here, you could be there. You have Rick in California. We could all be working on exactly the same thing, but then that central server is what makes it possible for us to keep it up to date. And you have my changes, I have yours, we have Rick's, all constantly updated and all available to everyone all at the same time. It is happening a lot already. Like, for instance, the YouTube videos. If you just have a phone like mine, you can completely be a YouTube hero just by uploading them to YouTube, doing the changes and editing and things like that on YouTube itself without ever having to do any of it yourself at home.
And as you said, we've grown up where you have a desktop computer and that's where all the power is. But even then, you see that yourself. You very rarely, when you think about it, a lot of the times you're just using it as a monitor. Really, there's a lot of things you are using online, like you said. You watch a lot of YouTube, or if you're uploading it to YouTube. And I've had this discussion today with somebody that these days people are more apt at looking at something for 2 or 3 minutes on a YouTube video than ever reading a one-page document on how to do something. I said, everybody does it. And if you go over that 2 to 3 minute mark, usually people are not interested. They say, oh, that's too much. Or if it is 5 or 6 minutes, you'll usually find that they go to the 3 minute mark and then they say, I know enough, and then switch off. It's as I said, that's where it is. It's all in that one area. And it just takes me back to one of my earlier computers when I got my first modem and joined up and it talked to another computer. It was like magic. Like it's a little dial-up modem, and then it connects, and then 5 minutes later you get a signal back that say you're connected, and then
you start seeing that little text going across the screen at 300 baud.
But it was just text.
Right, exactly.
You might ask a question, it would tell you something. So I remember one of the things, was it the Smithsonian Institute? I think that was the first thing I accessed online. It was just black screen with green writing, and you just asked a question. And it was fantastic.
Oh, it's fancy, yeah. Oh, in the mid '80s, I ran a computer bulletin board system before it was a dial-up thing with a dial-up phone line, and people could, leave messages for each other. You could download programs. There was a lot of public service information, different area codes for all over the country, things like that. And some people had, and again, this was all text-based, and some people had online games to where you could come up and take a turn. There was one particularly called Trade Wars that everybody got onto, and so you'd get on there and you would take your turn, again, all text-based, and then somebody else would come on and I was, oh, you sunk my battleship, that type of stuff.
I'll just say people were much more patient back then. Can you imagine somebody putting in their command and waiting 4 hours or even a day before something happened?
Well, I mean, the whole concept of computers, though, was that you put something in and everybody waited around. You remember on you ever read the books Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yes,
and they had this big mainframe called Deep Thought, and I can't remember how many thousands of years it actually came around, and they asked it the question to the life, or what the answer to life, the universe, and everything was. And after X number of thousand years, it replied that it needed to find out what the actual question was. So they need to make a bigger computer.
That's right. Yes. What was the question again?
Well, yeah. Well, no. The first one was, what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And so after these thousands of years, it came back and said, well, you're going to have to build a bigger computer to find out what the actual question is.
Yeah. But it was just, as you said, it was quite unusual. And then back then, I suppose, we were mesmerized by computer games like Pong, which just was a black screen, and one white slab on either side, and just a white dot going across a line. I used to, we got a television. I don't know if you had Chrysler televisions there. We had Chrysler TVs here. I don't know but they had the first it was a bit behind, but then the first color TVs are here in '76.
Oh, okay, yeah, we had them quite a bit earlier than that.
We didn't. Our first one was '76, and I remember we got a 26-inch Chrysler, and it had built-in games, and that was revolutionary in that.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it really, and it had Pong, but it was really better, real modern Pong. It had a green screen and a white thing on there, so and corded controllers out the back of the television, like a TV thing wound up and that, and we thought it was so fantastic so I can appreciate why people would wait, because there was nothing else to compare it with, was there?
Right. I mean, but the thing is that was something that was so new and innovative and cool. I mean, like I was telling you, whenever, we got married in 83, and then by around 85, we got our first VCR. Now, there had been some, video cassette recorder, for those of you that maybe not know what a VHS recorder is. Yeah. Anyway, and what was so cool was there are certain movies in the 80s that I have watched so many times, mainly because we had a limited number of things that we had recorded. And just the concept of, catch it, video on demand.
And
You could start it at 8:38. And you didn't have to be there. I mean, this was the first time you didn't have to be there at a specific time for the beginning of the movie. And you could start it any time you wanted to, and it didn't matter. And then we had a few movies, and I watched those movies because it was so cool to be able to watch and start it when you wanted to. And it was just amazing, and again, the kids today cannot understand not having instant access to the world on their little handset there. I mean, if we needed some, we went to a dictionary and encyclopedia. Of course, another thing we did that's kind of lacking today is I would ask my dad or my mother or my pastor or my teacher or somebody who I thought might know better, and then we would go to the encyclopedia together if we had to. I mean, and now the kids have more access at their fingertips than what the parents know. So they go where they can get their information.
We have an advert here of a little kid, just saying how, I think it's proving how much the internet plays a part in kids' lives. And it said, "Daddy, why did they build the Great Wall in China?" And he says it was to keep the rabbits out, because they had
all the rabbit-proof fence.
Plague of rabbits. And he said, "Oh, but that was the sort of thing." He said. So I love that bit. It was really, really nice. But as I said, where I said to televisions, and when I said we had them in '76, the first color, and I can remember how excited I was when we got this color TV, and even that when we got it though. It was only black and white. They weren't broadcasting color all the time. Okay. It was only selected things. And then I remember about after 6 weeks after we got it, it was a Friday night, and it says at the turn of this clock, it's going to go all color. And, they did this. They had a program on, and it was black and white, and then they slowly turned it into color. It was so dramatic, like they wiped it over to. And I remember the first film I watched was on a Friday night. It was Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall in The Planet of the Apes.
Yes, Planet of the Apes.
That was because I'd seen it before in black and white, but not in color. Because that had come out about '69, I think, wasn't it? The Planet of the Apes was about '69, but this was the first time I'd seen it in color, and it said, "Oh, it was fantastic." The only disappointing thing was later in the years when you saw Herman Munster in color, it just lost the magic a little bit. When it wasn't the same. It just didn't work in color. It was black and white. The makeup looked much better in black and white on that. So,
well, I'm seeing one of the things about me and my wife and myself both. We don't really have a problem watching anything if the content is good. I mean, the other day I told you I watched that black and white scratchy tracked movie, black and white movie, and this was like, I mean, I'll watch movies from the 30s or 40s or whatever. I don't care if they're black and white. We have a tendency, our TVs are capable of, they're not 4K. We're not probably going to mess with that, but until these blow up. But you buy a TV and you keep it until it blows up. You don't get one just so you can have the latest. But we watch a whole bunch of older things on our televisions and stuff. And so, I didn't realize, I think we probably had that television a year before we played the first Blu-ray on it and actually saw what it was capable of, and it was like, oh wow, look at that, because we just didn't know, because we were watching, 70s and 80s series and, series television and older movies, and like you say, Planet of the Apes era stuff and just all kinds of different things. And then it was a long time before, our cable company didn't have high def available on the cable channel, because I guess where we're out in the country, but you could get high def over the air for the digital channels. Once they did the digital channels, you can actually get a better picture off the, for the network television over the air. So, we started seeing some pretty good television on that. So, we're not really that worried about, being able to see everyone's pores, in their skin. We actually enjoy having a better picture of the older shows, and just enjoy the old stuff. And it doesn't really matter. I just love the idea, though, that you have a television that's not simply a television. It is basically, like you said, a monitor for whatever input you decide to put into it. Your gaming station can go into it, your Roku, your cable thing, if you have a regular VCR or DVD, or you can even plug a standard old-timey RGB computer monitor plug into it. I mean, it does all this stuff, and it's just this central hub that you can plug all these things into, and it produces whatever you're looking for. I just think it's amazing.
And now as well, especially with that HDMI, it's just one cable, and it just does a fantastic quality on that. But it's said the only thing I'm wanting to go for next in the TV is the OLED, because not so much the clarity, but the black and white, the proper black and the proper white, because that's the only thing you miss on most of the TVs these days. Whereas the OLED's got that thing. And was you saying with older things, I quite like watching older movies, and I mean older movies, say probably pre-80s sometimes, because those ones between the 80s and 90s, sometimes they date so badly that I can't bear to watch them. They're doing things so bad, it's so old, like we were talking about, like the kids are in an arcade playing video games like that Pong or something like that. It just looks, and we're all getting excited about it.
I love seeing the old cars, and seeing the old ways people dressed, and the idea that the tension in a police show is caused because you can't get a hold of Starsky because he's not near a telephone, and that's what's causing the tension in the story, is the fact that he's not reachable.
But that's why I like the slightly earlier, where we didn't do much change. It was between probably the 70s, let's say late 70s or 70s going back to the 60s. They usually concentrate. It was pretty much, there wasn't too many things. There was a telephone in the thing, or a TV maybe. But other than that, in most films, it wasn't. They didn't used to date things really, did they? A lot of these films still stand up today, like when you look at Gone with the Wind, and that. Yes, it's an old pic, but it doesn't. It's a classic. It just doesn't seem to date where something stands out that it's ridiculous, does it?
Well, okay. Well, I think the main difference is you have something that is specifically a historic period. It's a historic piece, but then you have modern day today shows that were made in the 60s, in the 70s, and they were modern day today. So what you're doing is saying this is modern day, and it's not anymore. And so I don't know, but it really enjoys seeing a lot of the older stuff and just letting it be its own food group for wherever it came from. And I do find it amazing. You're thinking, well, why don't you let him, why don't he pull out his cell phone and do that? Oh, I forgot they, come out in 77 or, 87 or 98 or whatever, so that didn't happen until then. But I've noticed even up into the 60s, the color stuff up in the 60s, a lot of it, a lot of the British shows and things like that. You go look in, say, what's his name? The Saints apartment, and you don't see a television.
No, that's right.
Everybody had them by then in the U.S., and there's no television, and there's a lot of books, bookshelves and books around. I love seeing that because I love books, and we didn't have a television a lot when I was growing up, so that it's just cool to see households without a television and with a lot of books on shelves around. I just think it's cool.
And then back then they had a television. If they did have a television, that's it. They had a television. Like now, how it's just not. Did they have one? How many do you have? Because
Let's
pretty
see.
much everybody who's in the house has one.
That's what. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's only my wife and myself now, but we have two 46-inch televisions. I have a 21-inch monitor here. I have a 15-inch computer monitor. I've actually got unused 3 more 15-inch computer monitors of the newer type, you know. And I was trying to think. A friend of mine the other day, I had given him, when we got our 46-inch televisions. When we got the second one, I gave him this old 27-inch conventional, you know, CRT television, and he said, well, yeah, that's cool. And so he took it home. And the other day, he told me, a couple days ago, he told me that he had just recently bought a 36-inch, you know, flat screen type television, you know, and like you say, he's just more than happy to use whatever he's got. And he goes, you know, that television he gave for me, that was like 2 years ago. All of a sudden, he just says, yeah, I just now got something. He said, I didn't realize how good the picture could be on one of those new ones. He said, I put that back in the bedroom, so, you know, I may use it occasionally. He said, but I was thinking, man, they got 2 more years out of that because it was been outdated for so long. I was just kind of thrilled he got some use out of it.
and then the TVs and that, like there were a bit of furniture. Like they had 4 legs. They stood up by themselves. You could put things on top of them with flat tops. But there was just like so it wasn't just a TV you had to buy. Oh, will it match in with the decor and that? Like one of ours we had before the color one had like louver doors that shut together, so it looked like a drinking cabinet or something.
Oh,
so you put close the doors to protect the screen when it wasn't being used, and that you just think how silly some of the things are.
Several years ago, there was an article, and this was back in the 70s. There was an article in the Reader's Digest, and they were basically making a spoof of archaeologists and how they always, you know, tell you with authority that this is what this culture was doing and thinking with this particular artifact that they found and stuff like this. And what they did was went into this little like Route 66 style motel and was doing the archaeological, you know, type of a thing on this hotel. And anyway, the thing is, on the door it had a sign that said "Toot and come on." You know, basically toot your horn and then come on in, you know, and so that's what they were calling it. And, but anyway, the television was called, you know, and they give these religious aspects to all these artifacts they found, and they were making fun of this. And the television was called the Sacred Altar because everything in the room was centered around the sacred altar. And it appeared that you got results from the deity by pounding on its surface.
Oh, you go
because you go bang, bang to try to get the television to work. It was back in the 70s. You can't hit them now; they're too flat. But I mean, back then people spent a lot of time hitting on them.
And it never did anything, did it? But it was just made you feel better. It's not the pitch is bad, bang, and you used to, oh, that's better. It's come good, but it had nothing to do with you banging the TV.
No, I'd say it probably didn't. If anything, jarring the cathode ray tube, I wouldn't think would be that good of an idea. You know, just jarring the thing.
And I never used to realize that when the TVs how damn dangerous they are, because if you opened up the back, those cathode ray tubes, somebody said they store the electricity for so long.
It's a capacitor. We always called it the soup knocker, because if you stuck your hand in there and touched the wrong thing, it'd knock the soup out of you. So we always called it the soup knocker. I mean, years later, they could be in a junkyard for 10 years, and if you touch that thing, it will discharge and just knock you on your behind.
I did at one stage years ago an Apple course at Apple when the first ones came out for work. So I would be an authorized Apple upgrade technician type thing. So I got my little certificate from Apple back then. Excellent. So the first thing you had to get was the anti-static mat, and you had the wristband that grounded you, and then you had your metal thing with a rubber handle that you had to click on to discharge the tube. To discharge it before you worked on it, so you didn't kill yourself.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I learned how to do it. But I said, I don't like the idea of that if I do the wrong thing. But it said, well, if you don't, if you touch it, you're going to do the wrong thing. So,
Well, we used to have a guy in our church that was an electrician, and we were building a new church building, and I saw him setting up on a cinder block wall before they put the ceilings in, and he was wiring some, junction boxes up there, and he had one hand in his pocket with a live circuit, sparks flying, and him touching these wires and moving these wires around. And he had his hand in his pocket, and that's what kept him from, he could feel it a little bit. But I mean, he'd been doing this for 40 years at this point. And so sparks were flying. I'm just sitting there watching him, and he's got his hand in his pocket. And I was thinking, wonder why he's only doing that with one hand. Well, that's to keep it from going across his heart.
Yeah.
And so, and he was, he wasn't even flinching from it or anything. He was just stuff into doing this. And with the circuit on, I'm thinking, okay, that's more of a man than I'll ever be. I will never do that.
Or with said where I was working in Brashes, or what they called it here, was the one of the precursors to like your Circuit City.
Mm-hmm.
And with the TVs, the carpet in the store I was in, when you used to walk a bit funny, it used to pick up the static electricity, in your finger, when the carpet, when you have nylon carpet and that. And in them days, you had to switch the TVs on. Some of them you had to press a button on.
Mm-hmm.
So I did switch one of them on one day, and a huge spark jumped from my hand to the TV, and it broke it. And then the technician did the circuit board. It did because he said, no, you can build up quite a charge. You don't realize how much of a charge you can build up there if it's just the right circumstances, and it goes straight through there. And I thought, it's quite amazing. I saw that. I thought, what's that? And it straight through to the TV, and it didn't come on then, but it just, I thought, I think I've damaged that. So.
Whenever we were toddlers, we found out that you could rub your feet on the carpet at church. And so down the stairs going into the basement to the Sunday school rooms was a rail that was just basically made out of 1-inch pipe that was painted white, 1-inch probably gas pipe that was painted white. And that's what the rail was made out of. And we got in the habit of scooting our feet as we went across the carpet and then shocking that thing every time we went down, and got a kick out of it. And we burnt the paint off of that. Off of that corner, we actually burnt over time. We burnt the paint off of the connector there where at the top of the stairs. We burnt the paint off of it.
And of course, your friends, you always touch them ever and zap them.
Oh yeah, it's
always...
like your ear or something like that. Yeah, it's always
zap that.
Shocking. Oh, I did something else technologically probably normal for a lot of people, but it's the first time I had ever done it. This lady I used to work with, it's an older lady. She had retired, and I work with her next door neighbor now in the new job that I started here recently. And they were going to be having what we call a yard sale. Some people call it a rummage sale, garage sale. Some people call them tag sales, but you're just getting your stuff out there and putting it out in the yard, and people stop by, and they'll give you $1 or $2 for something. And anyway, I had not seen the lady for a long time, and she mothered on me at work, and we worked together and everything, and she's just a sweetie. And so I wanted to see her again. So I thought, well, I'll just go out there to her cell. It's like 40 miles away, but it was my day off, and I thought, yeah, I'll go out there and see her. So, and my wife's the one that did this one, because I used to be the technology guy in the 80s and into the 90s, but Betty, she started getting all these little devices, and now she's showing me stuff on some of them. So I got her address. I got the address from, and it had to go out this country road too once you got there on the interstate. I got the lady's address from the next door neighbor, and brought up that tablet that came with my phone, and brought up Google Maps. Okay. And talked my address as the beginning point, and talked to her address as the destination. And it accurately put both of them in there and took me right up to her front door. Because it says, it tells you, turn left at 300 yards, and all that stuff. And, and I'm thinking, okay, now, and I've known for years that people could do this stuff, but that's the first time I didn't know where I was going, and I had the address, and that's all I needed. And it took me right to her front door.
I must admit, though, the Google type in the Google tablets with the Android, and that seems to work much better than the Apple side for that, because I use the Android side of that thing with the voice recognition and just asking things,
Mhm.
and I would get more positive results out of the Android side
Really?
or the Google side than I did the Apple.
I, j-
I don't know,
I
it seems
just
very
assumed that Apple would be, and again, this is probably a general perception that
Mhm.
Apple, will they have such tight control over everything? I just assumed that it would be of better quality than Android would be, since there's so many hands in the pie, as it were.
I don't know why, but as I said, and I think a lot of people seem to be saying that the Google voice recognition or the Android side of it seems to be more useful. But still, I think the consensus is it's good, like you said, you use it for a couple of seconds and it works when you do this. But most of the time, after you get a few false results, you just say, look, I'll just type the damn thing. It's quicker to do that rather than to do that. Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Please repeat your request. And, and then you say that again, because if sometimes it's not the device's fault, but if there's a bit of noise going round, it's like when you hear it, when you listen to, so what did I ask it to? You think, oh, yes, a human knows I'm saying that, but I said it in one big long thing without a pause in my breath.
Okay.
But humans, we know we do that. And I listened and I said, I know why it couldn't, because they would say it to me. I said, I just heard the same thing.
Mhm.
It's not what you said. It's
Well, if you've had any voice training in enunciation, or you've done any voiceover work or anything like that, you have a tendency to speak clearly, enunciate well. And so, again, we had voice training and we're trained to enunciate when we were younger. And then, of course, I've done voice stuff today. And of course, I go to what my friend at work calls my Showtime voice.
your
And,
Showtime.
yeah, and I held the thing up, and I specifically said the thing, and it was 100% accurate on both addresses. And so I was just thrilled, because I'm getting arthritic enough to where it's hard to type stuff in there, even though it's the bigger screen tablet rather than the phone. The phone's fine too, but the tablet is bigger, and so I will probably use the tablet for that, and it's just great, and it talks. I even plugged it into the speakers in the car, and it was talking to me over the speakers. So,
did you ever see the film 2012?
yes, the year we make contact.
No, 2012, which is the end of the world with John Cusack.
Oh, that one. No, I don't think I saw that one. I was thinking 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then 2010 was when we made contact.
2012, this was, but the one of the funny scenes in there was, they're all fighting for life, and they've got to jump in this brand new Bentley and start the car, and they're all panicking and all screaming, and there's a big Russian in there, and they're all going, and he says, "Shut up," he says, and they all go quiet. He says, "Start." And the car goes, "Broom." It was voice cut, but he was just said, "Shut up!" And he had screamed at the top, and everybody said, and he said, "Start," in a real clear voice. And then the cat started up and went to. It was just such a funny part of the film where everybody's, they're nearly losing lives, and they just had to shut them all up to get the voice recognition, because it couldn't hear with everybody doing the pressing buttons, and they said, it wouldn't work, it won't start, and all that was a funny part.
This cacophony of noise.
That's right. It was probably, an $800,000 Bentley, but
Took the Russian guy to actually get it started, because once he got all the Americans to shut up.
He was a Russian billionaire, you see, so he knew about expensive cars. So the scene was where there was just escaping from Las Vegas, where these cars had been at the motor show or something in Las Vegas, and that's
Well, like you say, I've always said that everyone you meet knows something you don't, and so you've got to respect their area, and just let them handle it.
You were saying about the Saint and that, and Roger Moore. I did listen this morning to the Roger Moore.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes, we had to laugh when you fell on the floor.
Yeah. I just left the whole thing in there. First thing I'm going, well, there it goes again. And put it back on there, and then it goes down. I look a little more stern when I'm putting it back on there the second time, don't I? A little more serious about it. And then what's funny is I didn't even go, well, that was I just picked right back up where I left off. I mean, I was thinking, it's just there you go.
What was the quote? Don't call the child ugly until it's born, or what was
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Don't criticize the baby until it's born. I say, that's what it was.
I thought it said don't call it. I was thinking about it. I thought, did it say don't call the baby ugly until it's born?
Well, I mentioned that later. His official quote was, I think, "Don't criticize the baby until it's born." I say, and my wife told me Roger Moore was one of her favorite actors, and she really admired him for his work with UNICEF. But it was that was his response when they said that they told him that people were saying that Daniel Craig just wasn't going to be James Bond. And that was his response. Don't criticize the baby until it's born, I say. So, that was funny.
Until you've seen what it's done, you just don't. As you said, and it's only because you compare them against somebody else. And in that, everybody that's the thing, is people bring their different style. They're not all the same character. They get different people to bring life to the character. I think that's why it's probably gone on so long. If it was just the same old thing, people would be fed up with it, I'm sure.
Well, and then it was each character. I mean, each James Bond was a person for their time as well too, because the television and the movies changed, in the way they were. So when Roger Moore came in after, what's his name? Sean Connery was more thuggish and, and then Roger Moore was like, hey, but they were that way in the 70s. That's the way a lot of the shows were. Rowan and Martin's Laugh and stuff like that were more funny. And then, so they were each for their own time and the way movies and television was at that point. And so that was, that was pretty cool to watch all the different ones do their different type of acting in the places they were in. The writing was being done differently each time too, so. There you go.
Well, just reading something about like you were saying with Roger Moore with his death recently, and he said it's amazing how far you can get with just moving one eyebrow up that way, one eyebrow up that way. He said it's amazing how much you can. Because that was the thing on the Saint, wasn't it? That was the opening shot when the halo went. His sort of eyebrow went up.
Yeah, I was good. Sometimes he'd do this, but I mean, you're just kind of like.
I remember as my mum's an avid knitter. She always has been, and she said, she's got a load of patterns from, the early '60s before he was an actor, when he was a model, and he used to model jumpers for knitting patterns and things like that. So she's got quite a lot of his early ones when he was probably about 19 or something, doing knitting patterns, because they're about the same age. Well, my mum's 90, and I think he would have been 90 this year. I think he would have, because the same. I think he would have been. I
think so. Wait a minute, he was born in 1927. I just now saw that on some documentation I was looking at.
Mum's 1927. So and that she's 90 this year. So, but it's strange with people like these film stars, because they're getting old like everybody, but you just still think like Moonraker.
Yeah.
Because was that the last one, the last Bond one he did, I think.
My wife could tell you. I'm not sure which. But
it's one around. But you just keep thinking of him as Moonraker in Moonraker, and you just don't think people get older. You just, because you see them and then don't see them in many other things, and so you just keep that image of them in your head. It's a bit like we were saying, like you don't have Clint Eastwood, because you saw him so much even after that he got old, and you gradually saw him get old. So it's not sort of you still think about them differently.
Yeah, that is true. Let me ask you about the channel. What did you think of the of me just sitting still in the car and doing the recordings as opposed to running down the road?
Yes, good. That's good. But going down the road adds something else, because I like to see the little things flying past, and I'll look at what's going past and the general stores you're going. Oh, that looks interesting, just seeing that. But it was okay sat there too, because you could be more interactive with it when you were sat there. You were sort of like a news. So now I see on there I've got this, and then you bring the other device in and you've got that. Whereas when you're driving along the road, but that's good as well because you're looking around for the traffic. Oh, yep, okay.
Well,
What's that down doing? He's in a bit of a hurry, or so because you said one day, wasn't it? Somebody, oh shoot, somebody went. What's he doing?
Yeah, somebody pulls out in front of you.
And might have said, "Oh shoot!" But I think, I bet you would have said something different if he wasn't one recording this.
Oh no! That's me. You're seeing there. I'm not much into saying things that you can't. If somebody say, "Well, I want to tell you a joke," and I say, "Well, can you tell it in church?" And they go, "I guess not." I say, "Well, I don't think I want to hear it." And so,
well, that's the thing. That's the thing is when you do things like this and you put it on the internet, on YouTube. And people say, "Oh, they should never." I said, "Well, I always think about this. If it was on the national news at 6 o'clock, would you mind?"
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. Or would you let your grandmother watch it?
Yeah.
No, well, don't do it. That's the thing. If it's something you would say to your grandmother, yes, but that's an easy thing to do because it said you won't get into trouble. And if you think, would you talk like this to your grandmother? Yes, you would if you have a little bit of a joke, but as I said, it's not the right format to do that. And quite honestly, when you're in the car as well, I don't bother, not because I'm really nice and better than that. I just can't be bothered because what's the point? It's in the other car, they never hear you. So, but some people, it's like when when you have people, you're watching a quiz show.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mum does that. She yells at the television, the answer, as though they can hear you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you got to try to yell it out.
And you get fast, so they can't hear you. But it's just habit to do, like people do that. So start yelling at the television.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's like the old pantomime. Behind you, behind you.
Oh, one of the funniest things I ever saw that looked like that. I mean, that happened. And I mean, I didn't see it, but my brother told me about it. It was when his oldest son, when E.T. came out, and he was watching E.T., and he was just really, like, he was a small kid and he was into it. And he was just really into it. And all of a sudden, I think Elliot looks at the little girl and says, because they were wanting her to keep the secret, and what'll happen if you tell? And my nephew looks at the screen and says, "It will bite you." So it was just the worst thing he could think of. He was just a little kid. The worst thing he could think of. He just said out loud, "It will bite you." Well, but
asking him a question.
Oh yeah. He just answered them. What'll happen if you tell? Yeah, it's like E.T. would come up and bite you. That was just the worst thing he could think of. But one of the things I have noticed online, on iTunes, as far as podcasting goes, on iTunes, there were only 2 ratings: clean and explicit. Okay.
All right.
So there's only 2. It's not like they've got this big old long range of them. It's just either clean or explicit, and that's what iTunes has. I have jealously guarded my clean rating on there, as much as I ever can. And so what is funny is there have been many people here and there that have unsubscribed to a show or stopped listening to a show because there was too much profanity. But if the content is good, I've never heard of a single person ever unsubscribing because there wasn't enough profanity.
Oh, that's right. Nobody's ever done.
So if the content is really good, they will listen to you without profanity. But if you have too much, and even if the content's good, but you have an awful lot of profanity, sure, there's a lot of people who will listen because people just talk like that these days. But you'll lose a few people that you might have had simply because it just goes over the threshold and they just can't take it.
I sort of don't. The thing is, I like profanity where when it's meant for an explicit thing. But because if they use it all the time, it doesn't mean anything. But when you watch a whole series and they might just say one bad word, it's a real bad, angry thing.
Something really dangerous or really ugly is getting ready to happen, and it can be used in movies like that and stuff, and again.
But even, just to make a point, there was one of these English shows, and it was all properly spoken and all that, and there was just one that came out and that just caught me by surprise. Did she just say that? But it was sort of a high-end doctor who was always poshly speaking, but somebody was being really sarcastic to her and being talking down to her, and it was just such a
emphasis that she could add by using profanity at the time.
I won't say the word, but she, there
Thank
was was ordering all this stuff, and she says, "Oh, and can I please have this, and that," and it was being really sarcastic on the other end, and she says, "Oh, and STFU." And he said, "What's that?" And she told him.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Just think about it.
My main thing about using profanity at all, when I was a little kid, and I may have told this story before. When I was a little kid, we moved and we went to a new school. And the kids at this point at this school, and this was like 4th grade, 5th grade, they were using words I had never heard and didn't know what they meant. I mean, it was just, I do now, unfortunately, but it was just profanity, just rolling and rolling and rolling. And I was really grieved about this. And I went home and I asked my dad, I said, why do these kids cuss so much? And with a straight face, he looked at me and said, because they have a really small vocabulary. And to this day, when I hear people using 4 F-bombs out of every 10 words, the first thing I think of is they are pretty uneducated and don't have a very big vocabulary, because that's just the first thing, the impression that I get, because they have to use these all-purpose words and that way they don't have to learn real words. And so they can just fill sentences in the areas they don't know what real word to say. They can just fill it in with this profanity. And this is normal speech for a lot of people. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, why don't you use real words or a real sentence or something, and I just because my dad said that, total straight face, totally serious, they have a very small vocabulary, and that's why they use so much profanity.
And then to this day, you said, and now every time you hear that, you said, that's right.
Yeah, it's proven every day when I go to work. That's awful, but it is.
You could get yourself beaten up there. You said, here's a dictionary. What's that for? Well, you obviously need to learn some more words. Using the profanity while I'm punching you.
Oh, yeah. And that's how come I don't have any hair in the front, because I grab you around the head and go.
But it's the sort of thing where even if I don't mind it on films and that, you just want it so you can show it to everybody. You don't have to worry about who's watching it, because most of the things, but if it spoils it for a lot of people, because they don't want young kids to watch it. The content of the film's not bad, but it's just sometimes just the damn language, isn't it? So
yeah, it gets really, really excessive. It's the same on a movie. I think it gets in the way of the plot a lot of times. If and people will swear for emphasis, and it happens if something really bad is getting ready and they're afraid or they're angry or something. But just cussing in normal everyday conversation, it actually gets in the way of the story. They use so many cuss words that they don't actually get the actual story out the way it needs to be, because they substituted this profanity to get the ratings that they wanted on the movie for real words that could actually advance the story. And I don't know, it just seems like a really cheap device, and it's actually disgusting at times.
It's a bit like Rick says a lot with the verbal crutches. It's a bit like that, but like in voiceover, the verbal crutches, and then and now, and quite simply, basically, and things like that. It's easy to put them in because people can understand it, but it's not right. It's like you said those words. Yes, I might say it, but it's not it's just an easy way out. And like you said, to get people to watch it. And same thing when you're doing a script. Like I quite always follow that list that Rick's got, so you don't use those verbal crutches. So you use different words. And said, well, if it was quite simply, why is somebody asking you to show them how to do it? Quite simply, he said, well, obviously it's not that simple, or else you wouldn't be doing that. So don't insult people on that. So
I think when people are free talking, they use those words so they can gather their thought together, and it gives them some space to be saying something, but then it's it gives them a little bit of space to finish the thought in their mind so they can go ahead and say it.
I've done that sometimes myself. I'll be talking away, talking about the particular thing, and as I've just said that thing, I think, what on earth is coming next? And you just got to make some way to think, oh, that's right. Because sometimes you're just so into the conversation, and then you start thinking about something else ahead of it, and you forget what you're talking about straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why sometimes people do that. Well, let me think. That's a sort of stalling tactic, isn't it? The ums and the ahs. It's very much a stalling tactic.
Oh, yeah, it does, because you feel like you must continue to talk. And one of the things I have consciously done on these new YouTube videos, you'll see I get to a certain point and I'll just stop.
Yeah.
And it's not because because I come up to the end of what I was saying, and I haven't thought of the next thing to say yet, or I am pondering whether I need to say anything else. Did I get that said? Was that good enough? And I had one the other day where I just stopped. Then I said, boom, think deeply today, and got off. Because I was done. It was finished, and I couldn't add anything to it that I hadn't already said. Time to go,
If you listen to Hugh Brownstone, I love listening to him, his little videos, because he talks really nice. I'm surprised if he doesn't script them, but he does. I don't think he does, but he just talks so nicely, and quite often he said, hold that thought. And just like you said, just doesn't have, but just hold that thought, and you can see he's thinking. But that makes it comes over really well, and you remember what? Yes, okay, remembering it, but he just does it so nicely. I love watching. I love listening, even to things I'm not particularly interested in. If it's a lens I don't care about, I find it quite interesting, because it's just when people talk nicely,
mm-hmm.
they are interesting to listen to, even if it's about a subject you're not, you might like, but you're not too involved in that particular one. And if it's something that you really do like most of the things that Hugh does, it's extremely interesting. But he's quite the way he scripts things. Well, I don't know his script, but just what he talks about, and he does them in 2 or 3 parts, because sometimes he had so much to say, but rather than putting one big long video out, so he does a darn good job.
Yeah, that's part of what I'm trying to do there too. Whenever you stop, it gives the person who's listening a chance to catch up and resolve some of what you've already said, instead of just blasting your way through it. You come to a point, and then I'm asking myself at that point, is there anything else that needs to be said? And in the meantime, they have picked up, I'm not throwing anything new in there, and they can, okay, this is, and really get good and resolved on what I did say. And then I might do a closing statement of some kind and then go on out. And I don't have to be constantly droning while the camera's running. And that's one thing I have learned in doing these, is that's one thing I'm not going to worry about it if I have a few seconds of not saying anything. I'm just going to let it go. I don't cut the film. I just let it roll. And there you are. And okay, I'm just talking. I'm not trying to perform as much as what I have in my scripted stuff and things like that. And I'm really having a good time doing it. And I did notice that you subscribed today, and I appreciate that. But
I did subscribe. I subscribed the other one. I'm sure, because I was looking for it again today, and I thought, I've subscribed, and I did the other. I clicked the subscribe. It went into my list, and then I looked for it today, and I thought, I'm not subscribed. How did that happen? Because it did come onto my list, but it went away.
You probably subscribed to the Holbrook New Media channel, which is a separate channel.
Because I already had been subscribed to that way back, but this one, it was the Jeffrey Holbrook.me, because I was watching
JeffHolbrook.me, yeah.
And I was just watching them, and I did that when I was watching it last week, and then I went back to look at my list. I said, I can't find this darn thing, And I've just restarted my YouTube feed just in case it was on the iPad where I hadn't, just to refresh it. And it wasn't there. And then I subscribed again. I thought, and I'm positive because when you see it come up on your subscribe list on the side on your iPad, it came up, and I was quite surprised. But I've had that before on some of them. But now I must tell, I went through a while back and I unsubscribed to a lot of them, and it was such a shame because everyone I subscribe to is worth keeping on the list.
Yes.
But I just can't keep up. And sometimes I miss out on some good content on the people I really do like because there's so much and you just can't keep up. So you've just got to, like, I probably have about 30 on the list, but I've culled that down a bit so they're all people that you want to, and then quite often you'll get rid of that one and put another one on. But I'm still of the old school. I don't like unsubscribing because it's like saying I don't like you anymore. But it's not like that. But it's like when people don't be your friends and you don't. That's why I don't like making lots on Facebook because I'm sort of, well, what if I don't want to? I'll get upset if they find, oh, you're not subscribed, you're not a friend of mine anymore. But
oh well, like I say, I get a kick out of it when people put those things on Facebook that says, well, I've got 1,000 friends on here, but I'll bet you 100 of them won't even come over here and tell me I love you, and and I'm going to go through my list. It's like this big threat. Okay.
that's
Kick me off. I'm all right. I mean, and all these threats that people are always giving, or, if it's a Christian based thing, they'll say amen and share if you agree. Okay. And then they have the other ones that are political and they want you to, and all that stuff. And so it's just, and the chain letter stuff. I get the biggest kick out of this stuff. You're going to be blessed today and you're going to get $100 million if you share this with 10 different. Okay. No, come on now.
Yeah, but if they did, there wouldn't be so many chain letters because all those people that had $10 million wouldn't dare pass it on, would they?
Yeah. And just wonder where all this money eventually would come from.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's not like one person shared the 10 million with everybody because they wouldn't share it anymore.
No,
Kind of want to
that's
keep your
right.
10 million.
And, I mean, even in the old days when you used to get a proper letter in the post,
Yes.
the proper chain letters and that, and they thought, how ridiculous. There's some people would go out there, do another 10 letters to 10 different people, and they thought, but what was the point? I just don't know what the point was. What was
Well,
just
people do it. Of course, they get more instant gratification with the internet, but the point was to control people. And you would, some of them were set up to where you were giving addresses for, like contact stuff to where you would send out 10 of these and then they would send out 10 and then yours got bumped off the bottom of the list. And so you'd end up with however many, like 500 contacts or something for your business or something like that back in the letter days. And everybody mailed $1 with it whenever they did it or something. And then you would get, I mean, it was just kind of an odd thing, but now it's just the gratification, just like with some of these kind of benign viruses or, things like that just mess with people's computers as opposed to actually doing anything really destructive. It's just the idea of it's vandalism is what it is. The same thing you get if you just tear up somebody's stuff. It's not like, ooh, I like that bicycle and I want to steal it. It's just like, I just want to tear up what they've got.
Yes, right.
And it's the same attitude on these things to where you're just doing online vandalism and messing with people and just because it makes you feel powerful, I guess. I don't know. I think it's pathetic that you need to do something like that to feel powerful or to feel adequate. It's just weird.
There was something, we have a problem here with some of these smash and grab raids that people do sometimes, but somebody was saying about from, terrorism and these said, no, it's not the same. Said, at least these people who smashing and grabbing are doing it for a purpose. They want to steal money and take it away. These other people are doing, what are they getting out of it? It's just said, there's usually the thieves want to get it because they want the property, but it's like you said there, that's fine, but just to wreck it just so the other person can't use it, it's just really horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it shows a lot about, and again, thievery is wrong too if you didn't earn it, but at the same time, it shows, I think, something unstable about the person who just wants to tear up your stuff. They don't get any monetary gain from it. It's just the ego, the idea that I must break you. I did something to you, and I'm feeling it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I did something to you. Okay. I mean, you really need that type of ego gratification by hurting other people? Why don't you maybe help somebody and get a charge out of that?
They're the people who pull wings off flies and kick puppies. So you see, they're the
Exactly.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, the
And,
punting of the puppy. I was like,
yeah,
you have a
and they're the
bad day
ones
at work and you punt the puppy across the
that's
room.
that's when people when when they're cruel to animals and that, then they usually progress from animals to people. So
Well, but they always pick somebody that's an easy target that is weaker than they are in their perception. They never face anybody who would be an equal and maybe might thrash them. They always look for somebody they can pick on who is they perceive to be weaker than themselves. And I mean that is such a flaw in someone's personality that they need to victimize people who are weaker.
that please don't pick on me because I'm useless for that. So I'll back down always. I'm always on.
Well,
on
I mean, the thing is though, just because someone comes up and says something about your mother doesn't make it true. It's just kind of like, there are things worth fighting for. For instance, defending, trying to keep my wife, safe or something like that. That is totally worth fighting for. But somebody just comes up and says something or cuts me off in traffic. If they want it that bad, they can have it. I'm going to stay out of their way. I'd rather have them up in front of me where I could see them than behind me, tailgating me. I mean, it's okay. I hope I can take an insult here or there without having to actually just fight with somebody. I mean, that's just crazy because whenever you have a fight, both of you end up getting injured and, you should have seen the other guy. I really did some damage to him. Yeah, but look at you.
This week on the news the other day was this truck must have cut off this little Toyota Corolla, and so you played the dash cam out of the truck they saw, and you see this little Toyota Corolla goes a million miles out the front, zooms in front of the truck on the freeway, stops dead in front of him, stops the truck, crawls out, crawling on the windscreen of the truck, threatening the truck. I said, I think this gentleman's had a bad day. he probably didn't see him because like the trucks do say, he says, if you can't see my mirrors, right, I can't see you. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize that the little cars, but they won't give an inch, and then they're there, and if the road disappears, people do get cut off because they don't see them. But this must have happened. But hey, if it happened, he didn't get killed. But as I said, he zoomed in front and then slammed on the brakes. The truck had to stop. He stopped there, jumped out, and then started crawling up the front thing. But he showed on the
just turn on your wipers and throw him off.
I thought, that's good. Now the whole country's seen how silly you look.
That's funny. Yeah, that'll be a great still shot. It'll be a meme here pretty soon, probably, for somebody saying something, about not having coffee this morning or something.
Yeah, I bet you that'll be on YouTube if you put that in. I'm sure that would have to be in YouTube somewhere.
I guarantee it. Yeah.
So have you been doing some more videos on the way to work this week?
Yes, I just put another one on there. Matter of fact, right after I saw that you had subscribed, I went ahead and put another one on there. Trying to remember who the quote was from. Oh, this one was I actually quoted a character in Skyrim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the quote was, there's this real funny quote where you'll walk up to a guard in a town, and they say all kinds of different things, but one of the most celebrated things that they say everybody thinks is funny is, I used to be an adventurer like you, then I took an arrow to the knee. Oh. And so I use that quote for the basis of the last one that I put up there.
Anyway, it looks like it's another hour gone by. Gee, it gets quicker each week.
I'm beginning to think so.
Was that an hour? It's an hour and it says an hour and 18 minutes.
No, that isn't right. We started just right at for me it was right at 6 a.m. Now it's 7 a.m.
It says an hour and 18 minutes. Maybe it's just jumped forward and gone fast forward or something. But
no, I'm showing almost exactly an hour. Let me see. I can see on here.
I was just started a few minutes.
I have an hour 6 on this one.
Yeah, that's
I started it when you first called, so we're right at an hour right now. So
And so that was show 48. So
48.
next week's show 49. And I
Yes.
don't know if you noticed, I noticed when I was putting up the captions for this week, I put down the date of the 6th of June, but it was wrong.
Yeah, well, I noticed that about halfway through because I had written down here D-Day, which yesterday was World War II D-Day invasion in
Yeah, so
Normandy.
that was the
The 6th. And then I got,
6th.
well, wait a minute, that's going to be the 7th.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think what I was doing, I was thinking, oh, yes, that's the date, but it's always the day before in America. So I'll put it down because, like Rick's, it's my day Saturday, but I always put it down the date as Friday.
Right.
Because it's always Fridays when Rick's comes here. Anyway, thank you again, and
Yes, sir.
we'll catch everybody next week.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a good thing.
Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening. Links for a free subscription, feedback, and everything else we do is at holbrooknewmedia.com. You can find all things Jeff Blanchard at jeffblanchard.com.